Hi, my name is Dr. Alice Wellington. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist, and I have a passion for healing of emotional and psychological wounds. We've all been wounded, and we all deal with wounds in different ways, but the common denominator for all of us is that healing brings freedom for our mental health and for our relationship health. Ever hear the old joke? How many psychologists does it take to change a light bulb? The answer is just one. But it has to really want to change. Change is not just a term referring to coins or menopause. The kind of change we talk about in psychotherapy is life change. Life change is actually a collaboration of changes. There's change in behaviors, change in thoughts, change in beliefs, and change in feelings. For a lot of folks, change in behaviors is the most desired area for change. Probably because behaviors are the most visible and seem to have the most painful social consequences. Some of the most common behavioral changes desired are eating habits and discipline problems. Any life change doesn't come easy, though, because the desire for life change is usually motivated by pain, mostly emotional pain, and it usually requires even more pain to make the change. And who likes pain? For instance, for those who wish to change their eating habits, the weight gain is probably painful enough to motivate change, but the dieting and exercise to lose the weight can mean physical pain, as well as facing some unpleasant emotions hidden by the food obsession. Or for those wanting discipline changes, perhaps in themselves or in their children, the social consequences for disobedience are certainly painful. But requiring more structure at home can be equally as painful, especially during the testing phase. Quite honestly, no one really wants to go through the work of change unless they have to. And the have to won't become the want to until the pain outweighs the status quo. Thus the punchline for the light bulb joke. But it has to really want to change. When something in a relationship is uncomfortable, most of us want others' behaviors to change first. Because frankly, I think it's safe to say that most of us would rather not be the one to have to go through the pain of change. But achieving only behavioral changes in others or even ourselves will be, at best, only an outward, temporary fix. Because behaviors are only an outward expression, not the inward source of our motivations. To be more precise, behavior is a product of what we think. And what we think is a product of what we believe. And believe it or not, what we believe is influenced by how we view God. Just a side note, for some, God is a divine being, but for others, God is simply science, or nature, or even the self. But however you define God, it has the same effect on your behavior. It's still the foundational influence on your beliefs, thoughts, and feelings. To illustrate what I mean, I'll use a house to represent how our inward life and our outward life work together and affect each other. The foundation of our house will represent our view of God. This is our basic philosophy of life. The walls of our house will represent our beliefs, which are the standards that we live by. Now, the roof of our house represents our thoughts. They are the articulation or the words used for our view of God and beliefs. The fire in the fireplace, it'll represent our emotions, because emotions are fuel for our behaviors. The social functions we host will represent our behaviors in this analogy. So just as the foundation holds up the walls, your view of God holds up your belief system. And just as the walls support the roof, your belief system is your reasoning supporting your thoughts. Just as the roof protects the fire within, your thoughts often protect your feelings. And finally, just as the house is a place to host parties, your view of God, your beliefs, your thoughts, and even your feelings host your behaviors. So for our outward life to change, like dieting and discipline, our inward life must change. And to change our inward life, we must explore our thought life, our belief life, and ultimately, our view of God. So changing only our behaviors is simply not enough. The emotional pain behind the behaviors must also be addressed. Emotions. When we were young, we didn't have words for all of our emotions. And emotions were experienced as energy. Even when we grow up, emotions are energetic, and we still may not have words for how we feel. In fact, the energy of emotions is what often drives behaviors. And if we consider that energy not okay or scary, like anger or fear or guilt, it can be forced underground psychologically. That's an emotional protection called suppression. While suppression makes strong emotions less energetic and threatening, it actually ends up compounding the pain. Because suppressed emotion plus suppressed emotion equals emotional volcano in the making. And emotional explosions can do a lot of emotional damage, leading to more emotional pain. Emotional pain can feel like an out-of-control experience that often lead people to control what they can. Sometimes attempts to control becomes an over-control of themselves, or sometimes it's an over-control of the ones they love. Either way, the attempts to control something while ignoring the emotions misses the real issue that needs addressing: the causes of the emotional pain. The energy of emotions can be scary. But there is a way to reduce the scariness of that emotional energy, keeping it from going underground, so that the healing process can begin. You've heard the old adage, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Well, the ounce of prevention with emotions is to acknowledge the emotions as soon as they occur. Then explore and communicate those emotions. Easier said than done, huh? Probably because emotions are a bit like Jell-O, slippery and undefined when the heat is on. And like Jell-O, emotions pretty much take on the shape of their container. In this analogy, our life events. But if the container is shook up before it chills, emotions tend to get messy, like Jell-O spilled out on the floor. Finding a container for messy emotions is basically putting words to our emotions. But if we don't use that ounce of prevention, acknowledging our emotions quickly, we'll get a pound of pain. Emotional pain is not fun, and a typical response is to protect ourselves. Sometimes that protection shows up in the form of emotional armor. But emotional armor, while it may shield us from pain, does just the opposite of what we want. It also shields us from healing. Healing comes in the releasing of our emotional armor. But releasing our emotional armor is often more difficult than it sounds. One way to begin releasing the armor that protects us is to make connections with other people. Connections through talking about our emotional pain, like with trusted friends and professionals. even connections through healthy conversations with those who actually hurt us. Because talking about our emotional pain while making a connection with other people is the key to releasing our emotional armor. And that will help us heal by making the ultimate connection between our heart and our head. In other words, we find healing when we finally put words to the emotions we are having and sort out where they came from. We can begin to identify healthy responses and unhealthy responses. And we can begin to sort out healthy thoughts and beliefs versus unhealthy thoughts and beliefs. If we don't, unhealthy expression of emotions like fire can cause a lot of destruction in relationships with just a little bit of fuel. I know I chose a quirky name for my website, DrBrainChange, but I did it because I wanted to emphasize the importance of exploring our thoughts and beliefs in our pursuit of mental health. The whole process of psychotherapy is designed to identify the sources of our troubling behaviors and emotions. And I believe that in order to address behaviors and emotions that typically motivate a person to seek help, the best place to start is with the brain, exploring the belief and thought life. The motivation of my heart is to help hurting hearts explore their thoughts and beliefs and express their emotional pain in healthy ways with the ultimate goal of restoring valued relationships. And I believe that is ultimately the result of a brain change.